Is American Idol messing with your head? This week on Honestly, Dear Listener, we're talking about firsthand and secondhand embarrassment and how we can become a better audience member as well as a safer place for ourselves.
And we're also talking about bougie pillows, blowing bubbles, and the Mary Tyler Moore Show.
I'm Emily Hatch.
And I'm Carrie Schaefer. And this is Honestly, Dear Listener. Happy New Year, friend.
Happy New Year, you guys.
Woo, 2024.
I haven't seen you since last year.
I know.
Okay.
It's been way too long.
We are going to talk about some stuff today. We're going to talk about embarrassment. So stick around, and we've got some really weird, helpful things just scattered about today. So tell me about your new year so far. It's been 3 days.
Yes.
What have you done?
Well, I've done a lot of coughing and hacking, and the new year brought me a little bit of a cold, but it's okay. So if I sound a little off today, that's probably why. But I can hit a G below middle C.
Oh no, like an octave maybe below that. Hold on. Let's do a test.
I've got Sweeney Todd on the brain right now, so let me see if I can do it. No, there's no place like London.
Let me see. Hold on.
Yeah?
Let me see.
No.
Yeah. Can you get enough sharp?
No.
Oh, dang.
I know.
Well,
now, why is that? Why am I able to do that right now, but not when I'm regular?
because your vocal cords are swollen. So it takes like shorter, fatter vocal cords to hit low notes. And so, yeah, they have to be like closed entirely and then blown open. Usually our vocal cords as born ladies don't close that low. And they just kind of like, so yeah, now they're all closing. One of my teachers was like, you can celebrate a little bit during this time as a singer, but probably shouldn't celebrate that an awful lot because you're swollen.
Because
and
it's
your
just
cords
going to
are
go
just
away
like,
later.
Yeah. So that's my impression of your vocal cords. So yeah. But I will, okay, so like random tip. You have a water bottle there.
Oh, I do.
And does it have a straw in it?
It does.
So
it's one of these.
So take that off, and then you got your straw in there. So
Yep.
Okay, if you have like a thicker straw, like you can put water in it, and it gives you like a little massage. So blow bubbles in there.
Okay.
And relax your tongue like at your teeth, and then make a sound like woo. And then like a little siren. So what that does, you can like do that as much as you want. It gives your pharynx or your throat a little massage because it has chaotic back pressure, and it also blows off mucus and aligns more like your vocal cords and how they vibrate. So if you start feeling a little weird and gaggy from mucus during this podcast, just blow some bubbles and see if it helps. It is fun.
It is. See, I feel better already. Now, this tip brought to you by Emily Hatch, voice teacher extraordinaire.
Yeah, you can follow me on The Gigging Singer because I just rebranded. I used to be in Colorado, so my former voice studio was Colorado Voice Studios, but now I'm The Gigging Singer. So you can follow me if you want for more tips about blowing bubbles like a child. Yeah.
Hey, if it helps, it's great.
I mean, it really does. It's it seems like when I first heard of it, I thought, what are these dumb voice teachers thinking of now? Like, pretend you're picking up a piano and squeeze your butt cheeks. But it's not. It's actually like scientifically backed. So, fun fact.
I'm not going to argue with science.
I mean, you can look it up. It's like a real thing. It's physics. It's strange.
Nice. See all the things you can learn by listening to this podcast.
Oh, man, I love it here.
Me too. Oh,
So
Okay,
tell me
so
weird
yeah.
stuff. I want to know, do you have any weird things to talk
I
about?
have it's not weird. It's heartwarming and so cute.
Okay.
My so I have two little boys. One is 8 years old, and my 8-year-old, or my 10-year-old is always like, I know exactly what I want for Christmas. And he gives me the list, and I'm like, thank you very much. And then I give it to Santa, wink, wink. And then Santa does his best to accommodate. My 8-year-old, is a total mystery as to what he wants for Christmas. So this year, I was like, hey, Santa wants to know what you want for Christmas. And he was like, you know, the pillows that you and daddy have? Okay, we have like bougie pillows because when we bought them, we had trade with a friend of ours that owns a mattress store. So we went all out and we got they're like foam, they're like moldable dough. I don't know how to describe. They're
Ooh.
amazing pillows. And he was like, I want one of your pillows, my bougie pillow. And then he said, and I also want a silk pillowcase to go on the top of it. I was like,
Oh.
what? And he was like, yeah, it's going to be so comfy, cozy. And so that's what Santa got him for Christmas, a bougie pillow and a silk pillowcase. And the pillowcase is black to match his blanket, his comfy, cozy blanket that he calls his Kiki. And yeah, he is sleeping better than any 8-year-old I know. And I said this the other day. I cannot wait to discover more and more who this person is going to be.
I mean, first of all, that's the cutest thing ever. And
I
second,
know.
I'm sorry, I don't want to like put this on him, but he is you. I mean, literally last week you were like, I love my bed. I
Uh-huh.
love like and you talk all the time about how much you love staying in your bed. And
Yep.
then your son's just like, I want a pillow. Like with this silk. Like,
Oh,
come on
yes.
now. I
Oh,
mean,
yes.
he is
Yep.
you.
No, he's got my exact pillow set up right now. My pillowcase is a different color. That's the only difference. But that's where he
Wow.
got the idea, is because I like my silk pillowcase.
That is so
Yeah.
freaking cute.
Hmm. So
Uh,
that's a little tidbit of our Christmas. What
I
about
love
you?
that so much. Um, I I got to sing, and I
Oh,
posted about that on our honestly dear listener Instagram, which was really nice. I got to sing with Sarah Mount, one of our guests, a few weeks ago, and her band at Dazzle, which was the last. Um, they had oh my gosh, sorry, residency. There we go. A residency at Dazzle. I played the first show there 2 years ago with them, I think. And then we just did the last show, and that was so nice. And then I was supposed to fly back on New Year's Eve, and then I was asked to sub for a band. So uh, I got to go to the Broadmoor, which, if you are in
oh,
Colorado, you probably know the Broadmoor is a fancy schmancy place in Colorado Springs. And so it was for a
so
wedding,
beautiful.
and the guests and everyone were just so hilarious and wonderful and excited, and it was just a great time. So I rode back on New Year's Day, and my weird thing, I suppose, is I watched the Mary Tyler Moore documentary that was on HBO, but Delta has it on the plane, and I loved it so freaking much, and I was just so inspired by her and her strength and her life, and I related to it so very much. I didn't know anything about her other than I just loved everything she was in. And if you guys don't know who Mary Tyler Moore is, you are probably our age, and I'm just weird. I don't know. But she was in the Mary Tyler Moore show. She had her own, like, very um, almost like feminist, but they tried really hard to not make it feminist show. She was on the Dick Van Dyke Show.
Mhm.
She was on Broadway, and yeah, just amazing. And she was
What
a
was the
single
musical
mom.
that she was in with Julie Andrews?
Thoroughly Modern
Modern
Millie.
Millie, that's right.
Uh, so good. Yeah, and one thing that kind of ties into what we're going to talk about today. One thing that I thought was really interesting was after she had had a lot of success in TV and film, she really wanted to try her hand at Broadway. And they cast her as Holly Golightly in Breakfast at Tiffany's, the musical. And then they switched up who was writing stuff, and it ended up just completely sucking. And she was pretty devastated and humiliated. They blamed her for it like the press and the public blamed her for it going poorly, like she wasn't good. But according to this documentary, the script was not good, and the music was fine. And but they tried to blame her, so she didn't have work that she wanted to do for like 5 years or something surrounding that. And I related to her so much because what she did, not to spoil the whole documentary, but um, she was in a contract for 5 movies or something, and she had the rights to choose which movies she was going to do. And Thoroughly Modern Millie was the first one, and she gave up her right to choose what movies so that they would let her do this Broadway show. She wanted to do it so badly, and
Oh.
it closed pretty fast. It like tanked her career for a while. And then they just put her in a bunch of movies she didn't want to be in. Um, and so it was like she was, she could have given up right then. She was a
Mhm.
single mom, and she was like spending a lot of time away from her kid and then got this really bad rap for a show. But she didn't. She came back, and that's before she was in the Mary Tyler Moore Show. So they gave her her own show after that. She went on a Dick Van Dyke like variety show of some sort, and then she ended up climbing back up. It was just really cool.
That
Um,
is so cool. Oh, I love Mary Tyler Moore. That makes me want to just like binge the Mary Tyler Moore show.
yeah, honestly, I want to like get the transcripts or something from it, like the scripts, and just look at it because it was so brilliantly done.
Mm.
And just like her story is a story of triumph. And I think taking chances with your career is something that she really did, and they didn't all work. Like all the chances she
Mm.
took didn't all work. Some of them were devastating. Um, and so, yeah, I was just so inspired. And so that brings me to embarrassment,
Oh,
the fear thereof, and when it actually happens. The fear of it, the fear thereof. I don't know.
I
And
knew what you meant.
yeah, so let's talk about being embarrassed.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Carrie, do you have any like I think you told you told us a story about like having to go to get a new costume after a mishap once.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
is there any other times that you've been like embarrassed with your performing or your
Mm-hmm.
yeah, tell me a story.
I remember there was a time I was at a private Christian liberal arts college, which is kind of an oxymoron, in the Midwest on the Bible of the Buckle Belt. Nope. Reverse that.
Strike that. Reverse it.
Strike that. Reverse it. In the buckle of the Bible Belt. Nailed it. And I had a teacher that was so harsh and so mean. She was an opera teacher, and I don't want to sing opera. I want to sing music theater. I want to sing things that I'm interested in. And she
Uh-huh.
had me singing this opera number for a recital hour. So it was in front of all the other music majors, and I sang it. I have never sang so poorly in my entire life. Like,
Uh,
And this isn't just like a thing. You know how
Mhm.
sometimes you'll be like, it wasn't my best, and everyone else is like,
Uh-huh.
oh, we couldn't tell. It was great. It was
Yes.
so bad that people who knew me were like, what happened there? And my teacher was
Uh,
like, I don't know what you were thinking up on that stage doing what you did, but it was not your best work. And I just remember I've never sang so poorly in my life. But then when I look back on how on my performance, I think about I was really unhappy. I was away from home. I was away from family. I had a totally unsupportive teacher.
uh,
I I didn't I was already struggling at that school for a myriad of reasons. And I just remember thinking, why did you how could you have thought you were ever good enough to get up on that stage? Ever.
mm,
It was a massive blow to my self-concept because so much of my self-concept was built on the idea that I'm a singer
mhm,
and I'm a good singer at that. Like I'm probably, in any given room, I'm probably in the top quarter is what I thought,
uh,
and then to be so disappointed and so embarrassed. I thought
uh,
I cannot be in this program anymore
uh,
based on what I just generated, the sound that came out of my body. And I've never been that embarrassed of my singing before in my life.
wow. And it's just so great that your teacher was so
Oh
comforting.
gosh. Well, it's just a testament to like you put somebody in a situation where you're using fear tactics and um negativity to try and motivate somebody
Uh-huh.
and watch most of the time I think you will get a negative output instead of what you were looking for. Um
Mhm.
gosh, she had such an opportunity to encourage me and to really build me up, and she just tore me down.
Uh,
And yeah.
how long do you feel like that affected you, as far as like what you did and what you were worried about after?
Oh, well, I then went on to have not too long after that a uh pretty weird nervous breakdown type of anxiety hellhole
Mm,
where I laid on my parents' couch for a month and quit school. I ended up quitting, well, moving schools back to Colorado, and then I made it a semester there maybe and then had to go home. Um it was pretty devastating.
do you feel like that was the catalyst almost to like the downturn to you leaving and having that like
Hmm.
breakdown?
There were lots of other factors that were going on during that time, but that certainly did not help.
Mhm.
Feeling like the thing that was supposed to be the thing that I was known for and the thing that I could always fall back on being very much ripped out of my hands, I felt like. Um,
Mhm.
it felt like it pulled one leg out from under me. And I had another leg to stand on, but it wasn't long before that one also got pulled out. So
Oh my gosh.
yeah.
Wow, that's huge. And the recovery from that experience on top of a lot of other things, like how long do you feel like it took you to recover from that?
Oh gosh.
I mean,
Well,
what is recovery, but still,
yeah.
like how
No,
what do you
yeah.
feel like?
It took me probably a solid, I don't think that because I ended up going back to college and being I was cast after that whole thing as Audrey in Little Shop at our university back in our hometown. And
Mhm.
so, but I think that that was probably, gosh, a good year and a half or so after that
Uh,
whole thing. So it took me a while, but I was also bolstered
mhm.
by the fact that I was in my hometown at that point. I was in a
Mhm.
familiar place. My parents were close. The people that I loved were close. So that really helped. But my gosh, it took a long It took a long time, it felt like, too, and and truth be told, even being cast as Audrey, which should be a huge, you know, that should be an indication of, yeah, you're worthy
Mhm.
enough to be on this stage. I still, throughout that whole process, I had a director that was not very encouraging either for that show, and I
Uh,
constantly was like, "Am I doing the right thing? Am I being a diva? Am I being a this? Am I da, da, da?" Like constantly questioning. Um, and I don't know if I actually, now that I think about it, I don't know if I've ever come back
yeah.
fully from that. I still have issues with my voice being tied to my worth, and
Uh,
it's not my favorite.
and after that, you also were cast in professional shows, right? Didn't
Yeah, I
you?
got cast in a couple of shows, but still, it's like, you can be told, you can have mountains of evidence as to why you should be there
Mhm.
and you should have a spot at the table. But still,
Mhm.
I think, you know, that still doesn't tell your brain, okay, everything's okay. You can
Yeah.
stop being vigilant and you can stop worrying about this. Like, there's still stuff that comes up that the programming and the some of the things that my teacher told me that
Mm,
that I still hear.
mm,
And I think I could have a recording contract. I could be on Broadway, and I think it doesn't matter because that's an external thing, and when something is internal and affects you that way, you
mm,
have to process through those things and deal with the internal because no amount of external is going to change that. Does that make sense?
mm. Yes, 100%. I relate to that like piece of it because obviously, first of all, I'm really sorry that happened to you because
Thank you.
that's some bullshit. And do you know, okay, so I teach, I've taught voice for 14 years. And one of my biggest reminders of like why I do it and like how to be a good voice teacher is to not ever teach someone something that they have to recover from. Because
Mhm.
I cannot tell you how many students come in to see me with this like huge boulder of shame
Mhm.
that they got from their teacher, their previous teacher, or, a director or whatever. And I'm just sorry that happened to you. It's a real thing. And you know what? I relate to what you said about it doesn't matter at this point what you accomplish that would tell you that everything's okay if you can't figure out internally why you hold that. So, like, I relate to that because I feel like I've just uphill battled my career a lot. And there's a story that I have that I tell myself about being too old or being too fat or being too
Mm.
whatever because directors have told me those things or, that I'm
Oh.
not pretty or, whatever. And I I sign on to those stories or something didn't go as well as I wanted it to go. And then I'll just talk myself right out of doing stuff. And then I push myself in a lot of areas and I've accomplished more in the past 3 years than I ever have, like bigger things, bigger venues, bigger shows and whatever. And I in some ways have never felt worse. And I
Mm.
think that's what's difficult. It's like no one prepares you for the fact that once you accomplish the dreams that you have, that those dreams feel like they have way bigger stakes. And if you're battling like self-hatred, you can't even see your accomplishments.
Mm.
It's no one talks about that. Our artists talk about, you know, in the world like achieving your dreams. And but no one talks about once you kind of get into those places, like you get those professional shows or you get this thing, it doesn't solve anything. It
Mhm.
actually makes it worse because you feel more like an imposter. You have to battle that. You have to battle those voices even harder because you're like,
Yeah.
I don't belong here. I don't belong here, you know? Um, and
Interesting.
not that I've reached any level of fame or anything, but I have accomplished bigger things. And you know what I do? I discount it
Mm.
immediately. I'm like, well, I guess that wasn't that great because they let me in. Have you ever heard that I don't want to be a member of a club that would have me as a member?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's I mean, I think that really happens.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's that's partially why I'm so passionate about this podcast because I feel like we need to be reminded that not everything that we're doing is just like Instagram happy shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like you've been through a huge thing that you don't even know if you recovered from. You've accomplished things that people wish they accomplished, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And having like someone to relate to that, but also like what do we do with that? You know, how do
Yeah.
we recover from those things?
I think it ceases to become necessarily an outside problem as it does now an issue that we deal with internally. Um,
Mhm.
and I think that creating I'm just I'm just taking a stab at it. I have not successfully done this yet, but I would imagine that making a safe space for myself in which it's okay to not be perfect
Mm.
and say, I'm going to focus on doing this for joy and not to prove. And I think it takes really safe spaces in which to do that. Like maybe a performance or a show or whatever is not the best space for that, to
Mm.
do that work. Because you have patrons to think about, you have other castmates to think about. You need to be at the top of your game and experimenting and making mistakes, and having a safe space is maybe more appropriate to do with a voice teacher who
Mm.
is really kind and gentle and understands kind of your background,
Mhm.
or with a safe group of people, like almost like a support group for voice.
Mhm. I've honestly had I've taught some vocal classes in person the last few years, and I joke that they are like vocal support groups
Yeah.
because everyone's safe there. I will ferociously protect anyone. However, no one ever needs protection because everyone there is like safe
Hmm.
to be themselves. And there are teachers that exist out there that you can um, explore with. That's what I like
Hmm.
to call it. It's like it's exploring. Um, and but you know what the hardest thing about all of it is that like you have to be safest with yourself,
Oh,
and
yeah.
that's the worst.
That's the big one. So how do
Yeah.
we be safe with ourselves?
Oh my. So I okay, so I got a text from a student after a workshop where she was like, I said, you've just got to get out of your head with this because in the workshop, I was like, let's just try, just move your body. She has the most beautiful voice. Like, I mean, I think that about a lot of people, the most beautiful voice. But she would not move because
Hmm.
she was so terrified of what her voice would do if she moved at all. And I just said, you have to be safe with yourself
Yeah.
because I think the bottom line is like no one can fully talk you into that. Um, but remembering that there are no, in my opinion, and this is easy to say, there are no stakes with creativity. There truly are no stakes.
Mm.
When you mess up, you are a human being, and everyone messes up what they are making. And usually no one notices or cares. And if they do, it's a moment. And that
Mm.
moment passes by and has no effect on anyone but you.
Mhm.
And if you choose to be safe with yourself and think about it like you were someone else, if you saw someone make a mistake or sound bad, you'd be like, "Oh, that sucks. Sorry for that happening." Like,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? But with
Yeah.
us, it's like now the stakes are high. Like no
Mhm.
one actually cares or remembers. Your teacher, I don't know why. Like, but okay, this has shot me uh in the foot on some things and then also not on other things. Uh None of this matters.
Mm.
Is that like art is this weird thing that is so precious and then also literally doesn't matter. Like if you if you mess up, no one's gonna die.
Yeah.
Like if you sing, I mean, I had a director tell me once who was one of my least favorite people. He's the one that told me I was bad. Um,
Oh.
but he said, Emily, you're a singer. You're not a brain surgeon. If you go in there today and you fuck up, nobody's gonna die. If you're good, they'll remember you. And if you're not, they'll forget you. And I'm like, oh, yeah, this doesn't actually matter.
Mhm.
Like, in the scheme of real things, I think that's partially how I'm not very safe with myself necessarily, but I've practiced. And that's how I've kind of gotten through it. However, it shoots you in the foot sometimes when you're like, well, then why am I doing it if it doesn't matter?
Mm.
But I also think that people need to see vulnerability in others,
Mhm.
and we don't have any control over whether or not they perceive it positively or negatively.
Right.
And
Huh.
one of the ways that I don't know, dealt with this stuff is to realize that the better I am as an audience member, the more kind I am to myself because I realize
Oh.
that if I'm looking for someone to mess up, it's because I hope they're worse than me.
Mm.
Now, that being said, if you're standing on stage and there are people in the audience that are waiting for you to mess up, you should feel bad for them because that's really sad and difficult.
It says everything about them. That's a them problem.
Yeah.
Mhm. It's so
And
interesting. We've talked about this before with on the episode where we were talking about rejection when you got the voice when you did the voice audition and all
uh-huh.
of that. But we're primed for public ridicule. Like look at American Idol and how that show
Uh-huh.
like probably some of the most watched episodes besides the very end ones where people won the show are the auditions where people are who think that they have something that America needs as evidenced by they're on TV, and
Uh-huh.
yet it's just the opposite. It's American Idol showing people who want to be conventionally good at something, and they're commercially not. I mean, what do you say, like it's they're commercial, they're not going to make it in the music industry commercially,
Uh-huh.
and people would say, oh, they're terrible, they're so bad,
Uh-huh.
but they thought that they had a shot, and now it seems like they're saying, I just think that it would be so horrible and so embarrassing because you would feel like everyone in the United States knew, everyone watching this show knew.
Uh-huh.
that I wasn't quote unquote good.
Uh-huh.
Everyone knew, except for me.
And it primes us.
That's training. That is public shaming. And I think it's most insidious. And then what do we do? Like our brain is trained to think that way. And then that just ups our own fear. So now I
Mhm.
don't want to go out and I don't want to sing. If I get the kind of if American Idol is happening out there and they're laughing at those people, what if they laugh
Uh-huh.
at me like that?
You have no idea how many people come in to the studio for the first time and they are like, I don't want to be like that. I'm
Yeah.
afraid that no one's going to tell me that I'm bad.
Oh,
And I've literally had people ask me to just tell them they're bad. Like there's a lady that came in I never saw again because I refused to tell her she was a bad singer. She was not.
oh,
But she was like, okay, yeah, I get it. I can get better, but just tell me what's wrong with me. She literally yelled it at me more than once.
wow.
And I was like, I don't think there's anything wrong with you. Like everyone can get better. Literally everyone
That's
can get
right.
better and more consistent.
Mm-hmm.
Now, perspective though, they're looking for people. American Idol is looking for people
Mm-hmm.
to ridicule for views.
That's
Now,
gross.
I'm not trying to be a dick, but do you know why? Because people like to watch people do that.
Absolutely.
And then they like to compare themselves and how much better they are than those people.
Mm.
But you know what? I actually know someone who was on The Voice who had a bad performance and they ridiculed him. And he is a professional singer and good at what he does.
Mm.
And he was one of the people that they and they don't do that as much on The Voice,
Mm-hmm.
but they kind of shit on him. And it's
Right.
I don't know. Like I said, becoming a better audience member is probably one of the better ways to improve your opinion of yourself. I've asked students before, like, well, what do you think when someone doesn't sound great? And they're like, well, I don't know. Sometimes they're not gentle about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, the fastest way to accept yourself is to accept that other people are human too, and that you don't have to be the best one to be good. So
Yeah.
stop trying to make everyone lower than you,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
So what you're saying then is in order to be more kind to ourselves, in order to be more accepting of ourselves, we have to first extend that grace and that gentleness to other people.
I think there's a flip side that there are many people who are very gentle to others and not to themselves.
Mm.
But I think that's a really good time to remember that you don't look at people the way that you look at you, and to treat yourself as good as you treat a stranger at an open mic night.
Mm-hmm.
That should be a goal, that I could treat myself just as kindly as I treated a person who messed up at an open mic. I'm not a stranger to me. I could extend some of that kindness, but it's a practice. I mean, it's hard.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
I I get sad when I think about how much people let secondhand embarrassment stop them from doing anything. And thinking about that with Mary Tyler Moore is that's huge because she wouldn't have had this revolutionary show for women on television if she had let her firsthand embarrassment affect her. I wonder how many people were embarrassed for her
Hmm.
and didn't do anything because of it. That's
Yeah.
a weird thing to think about, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know. I know a lot of people who, because American Idol has put on videos of people messing up, they're afraid to even try it.
Yeah.
What's worse?
Ugh. Trying it and exposing ourselves to a possible embarrassment or never trying at all.
You ensure failure on the second one.
Mm.
You will never do anything. But if you try and it goes poorly, at least you know what you need to work on, you
Boy,
know?
does that take a lot of bravery.
Absolutely.
Bravery is something maybe that you don't feel, you choose, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. You gotta fake it till you make it a lot of the time.
Mm.
And choosing it is the only thing that like will get you out of the worry cycle that
Mm-hmm.
you're in that's stopping you from experiencing joy. I think that's the bottom line. There have been many things in my life that I did that were brave, but I didn't enjoy it because I was so worried about what was going to happen while I was doing it that I didn't even enjoy it. Like following your bravery to joy
Mm.
and reward, that's also like a huge piece of it,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, joy is inherent like in the word. It's actually in the word enjoy. To enjoy something, there has to be an element of joy, right?
Yes. Yes.
Hmm.
Yep.
Wow.
I think if embarrassment's the worst that it can get, then that sounds good
Mm-hmm.
because the worst thing than that is nothing.
Yeah. I told this story a while ago, but I think that it's salient here. Um, my husband Seth and I were walking in downtown Grand Junction where we're from during a farmer's market, and they had a bunch of outdoor pianos out there that people had painted on, and it was just for anyone to go up and play them just for the fun of it. And this guy was wailing on that piano and singing full voice and I said, oh, and ugh, I'm embarrassed relating this story, but I think it's such a good one. I said, "Man, I'm so glad I'm not that guy," or something along those lines. And my husband looked at me and he said, "Yeah, well, at least he's doing it." And I was like, "Oh, man." And it's true. At
Mhm.
least he's doing it. At least he's putting himself out there. At least I would assume doing enjoying himself, therefore experiencing joy. And yeah, he was totally right. And that stuck with me. That was 10 years ago or whatever. And that's always stuck with me. And when I find myself when I want to criticize somebody's efforts in my head, no matter what they're doing, visual art, writing, music, whatever it is, I I rein in my judgment and I go, yes, but at least they're doing it. And that is something that in and of itself is something to celebrate. And I admire that.
Mhm. I absolutely agree. And does this mean that we're saying everyone in the world should be famous and everybody's going to get a record deal and your open mic's going to be the best open mic that's ever happened? Or you have to make things public in order to prove that you're something? No.
Hmm.
But what are you afraid to do? Maybe it's a little thing. Maybe you're afraid to start writing a short story that you've been excited about because you're afraid it'll be bad. Be brave, practice bravery
Mm. Mm-hmm.
and gentleness.
Mm-hmm.
That's something you can do
Yeah, that's
because it would be
huge.
such a bummer for you to not have joy in your life with the things that
Right.
make you happy and excite you,
Well, and
you
just,
know?
things aren't worth doing just because they can make you money or make you famous or give you success or whatever. I think things are worth doing when you enjoy them first and foremost. And like we said, in that is joy. And then I think, we do things for the commercial, for money or whatever. But I think that joy piece has to be that's so central to the thing. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. I have, again, like I have this conversation with everyone, and I feel that I've lost that in some respects.
Mm.
And that's been a goal for me, is to really listen to myself and I think for those of us who do this stuff for a living, getting quiet and figuring out where the joy lies
Mm-hmm.
in this, because that's when things don't feel like work. And sometimes like it's work, but I've lately I've been like trying to listen, to be quiet and be like, what is little me
Mm-hmm.
so excited about, you know, like.
Mm-hmm.
And I think following that voice makes all the difference, because there was a time where I was just like, I don't like singing
Mm-hmm.
anymore. I stopped listening to little me and the joy that's in there, you know? And
Yeah.
I think that's it. Follow that. If you're following that, you'll make stuff. Because when you
Mm-hmm.
were little, you made things just cuz you wanted to make them. You know? We didn't think about who was watching or who was listening, unless it's like mom, mom, mom. but But yeah, we weren't like making things for money or anything. So then it doesn't matter if there's an asshole in the audience that can't get over their own shit enough to enjoy something. It doesn't matter. I liked it.
Yep. Absolutely. How cool is that to be able to say what y'all think is really secondary? It's what I think about it that is really the most important thing to me. And
Mm-hmm.
I had a great time doing it. Therefore, I thought it
Yep.
was great.
This was a good talk.
I needed to hear this. I needed to hear this going into the new year.
Me too. Well, I guess it's time to go.
Oh, so soon.
I know. It feels like we have just barely begun. But
Mm-hmm.
you guys, if you don't already, you can follow us on Instagram, and we'll give you little clips from our episodes, tidbits, some encouraging info, sometimes it's weird things. You
Mm-hmm.
can follow us on Instagram at Honestly Dear Listener. And we have a website, honestlydearlistener.com.
HonestlyDearListener.com.
Yeah, it's great. You can email us. Tell us stories. We want stories.
Yes.
I love a
I
story.
love a story too. And we want to know, what do you think? What do you want to talk about? Uh, we would love for our listeners to guide the show, because truly we want to create community. And this is really a conversation that we want to have with you.
Ooh, I have an idea.
Yeah.
If you have any questions that you want to know if other people are experiencing or feeling, will you send them to us? You can DM us or you can send them via email. So say you're like, am I alone here? Or is anyone else feeling this way? We'll put it on our story and see what our listeners feel. If you just want to know you're not alone, ask a question. Let's do it.
Yeah. You can also email us at honestlydearlistener@gmail.com.
All right, you guys. We'll see you next week.
Until next week, have such a wonderful beginning to your year.